Health officials orient media on ongoing COVID-19 vaccination campaign. South African women pick up guns for self-defense amid rising femicide fueled by the impact of COVID-19. And fishmongers in Banjul are seeking for help with the deplorable condition of the seaside. And more coming on the wall today. Good evening, this is the World Newscast with me, Sohna Tunkara, and now to our news in detail. The Directorate of Health Promotion under the Ministry of Health has on Friday oriented the media to raise awareness on the ongoing COVID-19 vaccination campaign in the country. The move comes as many people have doubts about the effectiveness and efficiency of the virus. Ndaisise was at the orientation and Sina reports.
The COVID-19 pandemic has caused great disturbance to the entire globe as no nation has been spared by the virus. Since the development of the COVID-19 vaccines, governments around the world are putting in efforts to make sure their population is safe from the deadly virus by taking the vaccine. As many people in the Gambia, like other countries, cast doubt over the effectiveness of the vaccine, the Directorate of Health Promotion orientated journalists on how they can play an essential role in sensitizing the masses. The Director of Health Promotion and Education, Mamadou Njai, said the health sector experienced a similar situation when the meningitis outbreak hit the country as people at the initial stage refused to take vaccination.
In 1997, when we were about to start, when there were meningitis outbreak in the upper end of the country, people refused to be vaccinated when we introduced it. But when people started seeing people dying in numbers of 10, 20, 30 in communities on a daily basis, they felt there is a need for them to be vaccinated. And the demand was created, and I would say I was part of the people who they were running after for us to go to their communities to vaccinate them. At the beginning, there were resistance, but at the end of it, they understand that we are trying to protect them, and they were running after us.
Mr. Njai assured the public that any vaccine that has been introduced into the Gambia is approved by WHO. WHO is the specialized agency responsible for the approval of COVID-19 vaccines globally. Mamandin Kinte from the expanding program on immunization explained how the vaccination process will be.
And vaccination per se have started. We know the current stock we have at hand cannot cater for everyone at a go. So as a ministry, as a program, we've developed priority groups. And among these priority groups, we intend to vaccinate first our health workers, simply because we know health workers need to be protected. And for us to continue services at our health facilities, we need to vaccinate health workers. And we don't also want health workers to be source of infection for the population. We want anyone that visits the health facility is safe and sound. So they will be our number one priority. And from there, we'll vaccinate people with comorbidity. These are individuals that have either diabetes, cancer, or any other form of non-communicable disease.
The vaccine will cover 20% of the Gambia's population. 2 doses of the vaccine will be given to each beneficiary with an interval of 8 to 12 weeks for optimal immune response. The country intends to vaccinate both citizens and non-citizens residing in the country so as to mitigate the spread of the virus. The World Bank and other partners volunteer to finance the cost of another 40% vaccines to cover the remaining population. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Ndaisise.
From the reports by Ndaisise, fishmongers at the seaside in Banjul call on relevant authorities to help with some basic amenities such as running water and toilets. The women cry the horrible conditions they are faced with daily. Binta Fati has the rest of that story.
Even though some progress has been registered by the government of the Gambia, more people continue to suffer from lack of basic amenities such as electricity and water supply, amongst other basic amenities in the country. And fishmongers are no exception to these common challenges. At the capital city, dozens of fishmongers, most of whom are women, work from dawn to dusk to make ends meet in an unprotected and unhygienic environment. This, according to the mongers, is alarming and needs proper resolutions from the government.
Sometimes you come to work just to realize that your fridge has been broken into. You won't even know where the thieves come from, but your fridge will be broken into. This is also our problem because you will have to look for money to pay for it.
Ajimaritu Sonko, the leader of the fishmongers at the Banjul seaside, said they have repeatedly voiced out their problems but have never received any form of help from the government or relevant stakeholders.
We are Gambians with our voters card and everything. Whatever happens in this country, we always participate with no one behind. So we want the government to help us. All we have is the government, and that is where all our hopes lie.
Omar Cisse, a Senegalese national working for the women at the seaside, reiterated their sufferings.
Sometimes, if the women have no work, we also don't have work to do. Also, if they are ready with their work, they don't have water or a toilet to bath themselves. If you want water, you will have to go to the market.
Despite forming 2/3 of the country's workforce and 51% of the population, women across the country continue to battle heavily with challenges that hinder their development. These deplorable problems, according to the fishmongers, could be solved if more care is accorded to them. Reporting for iAfrica TV News, I am Binta Fati.
Fishmongers at the Banjul seaside are seeking help from the government to provide them with basic amenities. Now, 10 years after a devastating earthquake and tsunami struck Japan, residents paid tribute to the victims of the Fukushima disaster in different regions of Japan on Thursday. People were seen disposing flower and visiting the Iwat Tsunami Memorial Site where a remembrance ceremony was held. They observed a moment's silence to mark the 10th anniversary of an earthquake and tsunami that killed more than 18,000 people and triggered a nuclear meltdown in Fukushima. And the devastating natural disaster is reported to have occurred at 2:46 p.m. local time, the moment Japan's northeast coast was struck by a magnitude 9.0 earthquake on 11th March 2011, and people attending private and public service across the affected region bowed and fell silent, some clasping their hands in prayer. From that, Nigeria's forex service have dropped to its lowest level in 2 months due to the country's rely on high imports. The new decline, according to experts, does not come as a surprise considering the amount of importation taking place in Nigeria. However, the country's central bank is not worried of the situation.
Nigeria's foreign reserves stood at $36.19 billion at the beginning of February, then fell to $35.09 billion by the end of the month, a record $1.1 billion, according to data from the central bank, its lowest level in over 2 months. Experts blame the plunge on Nigeria's high drive for imports.
This is not unexpected. The new drop is not unexpected. It's been oscillating over the years, Sometimes it will go up, sometimes it will come down. But it's essentially a function of our trade activity.
Because our industrial base, our consumption pattern, and everything that has to do with economic activities in Nigeria seem to be almost exclusively driven by our foreign exchange earnings. We have to import so many things. What it then means is that each time you have a hit on your foreign exchange reserves, we begin to look at ways to reduce our consumption. When, as a matter of fact, what we ought to do is to take a long-term perspective to try and reduce our reliance on those consumption patterns. So it will always be significant, and it will always impact almost every aspect of our economic activities.
The central bank says the plunge in its foreign reserve is nothing to worry about, as what's left is enough to serve the nation for the next 7 months. Nigeria is Africa's biggest crude oil producer. About 90% of its export earnings come from crude oil. But the nation still imports refined petroleum products, as local refineries are worn and dated. Experts advise government to adopt a more proactive approach to boost the foreign reserve.
It is an invitation for us to be cautious really, about what we are going to be purchasing in terms of our overall, trade policy. What are the things that government should prioritize? How much effort should we put into looking inwards? What is our policy towards patronizing local content? If we continue to focus on our foreign items, we know it's going to put more pressure on the naira, and when there's pressure on the naira, it will lose its value.
If you can lose $1 billion over such a short period, and against the current scenario, by current scenario, I'm talking of the various factors in the economy, in the society, including the all-important security issues. You can lose billions just like that. And therefore, yes, 7 months seems to be double what the international criteria is. But it might not just be enough. And so, on that basis, I think there's cause for worry.
The central bank assures that it will continue efforts to boost and conserve the foreign reserve. Some measures include the reward policy that encourages formal diaspora remittances, targeting intervention schemes to support local production and growth of non-oil exports.
Nigeria's forex reserves have dropped to its lowest level in 2 months due to the country's rely on high imports. Now, South Africa is recording more cases of violence against women after the government declared a national state of emergency to deal with the coronavirus and leaving South African women with option to use guns as means of defense. Many women have become gun owners in South Africa since its inception in 2015, after they are trained how to responsibly use the guns to protect themselves.
Gender-based violence continues to increase here in South Africa. In fact, it dramatically increased after government declared the national state of disaster in order to deal with the spread of the coronavirus. And now some women are turning to guns to protect themselves. Many have joined Girls on Fire. It's an initiative that was started by Lynette Oxley in Johannesburg.
So we teach people to be responsibly armed, to look after themselves, to train on a regular basis and make sure that they go through the right processes to attain firearms, and on a regular basis train with that firearm so that they do not go into a situation where they can't use the firearms effectively.
Since its inception in 2015, Girls on Fire has seen thousands of women learn how to responsibly use handguns. Other areas of focus include gun law, situational awareness, and concealment.
I think more women is actually coming through as gun owners. I think there's a lot of women actually working in the gun area. And if you look at the worldwide trend in gun ownership, the largest growing market is in firearms are actually women. And I think the trend is starting to happen in South Africa as well. We also then, another thing that we go through is concealed carry, where women can actually effectively conceal and conceal their firearms and carry on them. So we look at in terms of the Firearms Control Act, the firearm has to be under your effective control. It's got to be on your body. So we look at different options for ladies to conceal the firearm.
Many women who join Girls on Fire to receive training on gun use say it's empowering.
Well, for me, my thought is I'm well trained. I know where to store my firearm. I know how to use it and when to use it. And that is what the training entails. For me, kids and firearms, I'm very careful around that. Safety is very important because if you are not using the firearm in a safe environment or don't know the safety around the firearm, a lot of people could get hurt. And you need to know the safety around using a firearm.
About 3 million South Africans have licensed guns.
As a means of ending gender-based violence, South African women take up guns to defend themselves. We will now go with a short commercial break and the news continues. Stay tuned.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape and elevate real estate in the Gambia, it's compared to none. From inception, our goal was to add value to the beautiful Gambian landscape. That's why we are proud innovators of community estates. Kololi Sands is an exceptional piece of work, tailored for ultimate convenience and luxury, to bring you an element of finesse that is rare but unique in its own. This is also our pride and joy, and we welcome you to the exquisite beauty right here in Kololi and right here on the waterfront. Kololi Sands, feel the ocean breeze at your doorstep.
Welcome back. If you're just joining, this is the World Newscast, and to the rest of our story. The month of March is dedicated to celebrating the achievement and struggles of women face in their different walks of life, in fighting women's leadership struggles and promoting the participation of women in politics. The Westminster Foundation for Democracy, a civil society organization, held a town hall meeting for women political leaders to share their experience and challenges. More of that in this report.
The town hall meeting gathered women parliamentarians and lady councillors to share their struggles in acquiring their political positions. Several organizations around the world are fighting for the strong participation of women in taking leadership roles and being key decision makers in politics. In most cases, these women politicians face many challenges such as insults, calling of names and discouragement from their fellow women. Fatou Jallow, lady councillor of Brikama Area Council, says vying for a leadership position is always a challenge.
If you want to be a leader, you have to take everything. Because in the Gambia, it's very serious. Gambians have to change their lives, especially Gambian women. We have to change our attitude in the way we approach our fellow women. If you want to be a leader for a position, it's always a problem in the Gambia. Nothing but we the women. We don't want to see our fellow women prosper. We can dance and clap and buy asobis, do everything for men. Even take your financial support and give it to men than to give it to your fellow women.
To Fatoumata Tumanjai, Nam for Banjul South, many women activists don't support women when they are needed. Tumanjai expressed her determination to pave the way for the younger generation of women to embrace leadership roles in the Gambia.
There can never be a successful progress in development when half of the population are left behind. And who are those half? They are us, the women, and more so the young women amongst us. As a lawmaker, I pledge as the theme of 2021 to ensure that women take leadership, not only to take leadership, but to pave the way to make it easier for women to take leadership. And my pledge is to take the burden on myself to make sure that that brunt remains on us for the younger generation to have an easy path along the way.
The country rep of Westminster Foundation for Democracy, Madi Jobate, argued that more women are needed in decision-making processes, but quick to note that the reverse is the case in the Gambia, as the representation of women in vital institutions are low.
There are only 3 elected women in our National Assembly. Banjul, as the capital city, has only 1 elected lady councillor. Brikama Area Council, probably the biggest council, has only 4 elected women out of 28 councillors. So that goes to show that women are limited in number in centers of power, in decision making, institutions that decide the distribution of resources, the provision of services, and the protection of rights.
Rising women leadership in Africa reflects an encouraging global trend. However, only 14 countries in the world have 50% or more women in their cabinets and decision-making processes. Reporting for iAfrica News, this is Mariama Cham.
From that report by our reporter Mariama Cham, the latest on the Gambia's draft constitution talks indicates a failure despite the 3rd visit of former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan to Banjul. Political leaders in the country could not put heads in one basket on how to revive the document that was thrown in the dustbin of the Gambia National Assembly. Our reporter Binta Jallo, who has been following the development of the recent negotiations, files in this report.
Concerns have been on the center stages of all political institutions in the country, with hope that the millions of dollars invested in drafting of what could be the next law book of the Gambia would generate a meaning. The latest talks by those in the helm of affairs have, however, collapsed very far away from undoing the decision by the National Assembly in Banjul. The 2-day negotiation started on Wednesday was only good enough to have the stalemate in history books. iAfrica was compelled to ask the politicians what would be the next for Gambia on the build-up to a new constitution. Mai Ahmad Fati, leader of the Gambia Moral Congress, gave a historic description of the situation at hand.
No, it appears our proposal is gaining weight, that we should allow the citizens who are sovereign to have a direct impact through direct participation at an elections on the question of retroactivity. There appears to be an obvious impasse among the stakeholders on the issue. But we need to move beyond that. And since we represent Gambians, but it would be proper for the citizens themselves to speak on the issue directly, without we, the political interlocutors. And that is why the prevailing view now that seems to gain maximum weight is to move beyond where we are and allow the citizens to make a direct decision on the matter at the suffrage, at the elections. A referendum organized for that purpose.
The stance of the Gambia Democratic Congress, Mama Kande, is hopeful on the need to return the constitutional affairs to a team of legal experts similar to the Constitutional Review Commission that drafted the document at hand.
So far we are still giving it a chance for the next 2-3 weeks. And the proposal is that they're going to put up a team of experts in legal matters. And then from there they will advise the way forward, how we can maneuver to make sure that we go to referendum for this draft constitution.
It could be recalled in September 2020 that the passage of the landmark bill to replace the Gambia 1997 constitution was defeated shortly after the first reading at the National Assembly in Banjul. The view of 23 lawmakers against the bill, despite the support of 31 parliamentarians, was enough to call off hopes to a referendum earlier this year. With presidential elections drawing ever closer, it is unlikely that a breakthrough will emerge to dictate a 2-term limit for the occupant of State House in this traditional term of the current president. Reporting for iAfrica TV News, Binta Jallo.
Political talks held for the revival of the Gambia's rejected draft constitution is not taking a promising rate. Well, that was all on the world today. Gambia 24 is up with Mariama Cham. I am Sohna Tunka. Thanks for watching and bye for now.